Okay, so that it's really, you don't really need to swap back and forth between those because with your keyboard you can toggle that on and off while you hold that key down. So it's very, very quick and easy to modify that stuff. Okay, this little guy right up here while I'm at it is the undo history. So I can drag this to undo a bunch of things very quickly. Okay, it's really handy, and you can save your undos with your file if you like, but beware, files get really, really big if you do that, because you're going to be undoing a lot. So to save all that stuff in the file is not necessarily the best idea. It's often easier to just redo something than to save it over and over and over again, or to undo it over and over and again. Okay, intensity. Okay, I'm going to just divide this real quick. Intensity is how deep this brush that I'm using right now is going to sculpt into this. Okay, so if I turn this up to 100 and drag, you'll see that this is quite a bit higher than these initial ones that I had sculpted. Okay, generally you don't want to go to the highest level on this stuff because these do build up. Okay, so if I do something like this, I can build this up by repeatedly dragging on top of it. And that's a much better way to go than to have something just jump out at you all at once. It's much harder to control that way. Okay, focal shift is this, pull this over here. There are two circles here where you see this brush right here, and I'll make the size of this a little bit larger so you can see it. There's an inner and an outer, and essentially that's sort of a fall off. So the inside part here is what's actually going to move the geometry, and the outer one is it's going to fall off and end at that point on that circle. So to give you an idea of that, if I change this focal shift and push this all the way out like that, and then do the same thing, this is what I get. Okay, so I get a very hard edge there with very little transition. Okay, so you can think of it as a transition from one point to another, okay, with your brush. So if I drag this one out like this, okay, you can see I have a bigger focal shift now. Normally it's set to 0. So this bigger one is going to make even a softer transition than before. So a smaller number makes a harder transition, a negative number I should say. A larger number is going to make a softer transition. And you'll experiment with that a bit as you go. Okay, active points and total points. This is how many points are actually making up this particular piece of geometry. Okay, so if I zoom in on this thing, you can see these little squares, okay? And if I'll just turn this on for a sec so you can see what I'm talking about. These little guys are actually composed of flat faces. So each of these is kind of a flat thing, and as they turn in space, they're creating the curve, you know, the look at that curve, okay? So this is telling you and making you aware of how many active points there are, and the points are these little, every time a line intersects another line, that's a point, okay? And when you have 2 points together or connected, that's an edge. And when you have 3 points or 4 points, you have a face, okay? And that's basically a flat plane that then tilts and moves around as the object moves to generate its form, okay? It doesn't actually move, okay? Okay, so that's this top bar, okay? So that's part one of this, and then we're going to move on to some of the other tools here in a momento. So go on to